This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
What's up, Detroit sports fans? Welcome to the Fan Reporter Show, made by fans for fans, powered by the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I'm Nick, and joining us today is our boy Anders, going to give us this week's topics.
Looks like the Pistons have wound up with the 7th pick after Thursday night's draft lottery, so we're going to discuss that, see what some of the possibilities are around that spot, and we're going to do a little bit of rapid-fire playoff discussion. It's a Fan Report.
Okay, well, obviously the other night, Pistons got shafted. They moved down a few spots in the draft to land where they are, much like pretty much every other time we get a lottery in this city.
Yeah.
Let's be real. The Wings, with the best odds to land the number 1 overall pick, end up 4th. No surprise there. Now the Pistons, with the, I think it was 10.5% chance to land the number 1 pick, and the lowest they could go was 7. Well, guess what?
It's technically 9, actually. Yeah, but yeah.
I thought it was 7 was the lowest they could go.
7. So this is why I don't understand the NBA draft lottery. 7 was actually our most likely spot. We had a 26.7% chance of being number 7.
But we had the fifth worst record.
Correct, and we had only a 2.2% chance of being at 5.
What? And this, my friends, is why the lottery is stupid. You know, honestly, though, and I kind of want to get your take on this, because I was kind of thinking about this throughout the day, and just seeing how the lottery has screwed over, well, local teams, obviously, but teams in the past. I mean, the Knicks got shafted as well. There's been several teams that have gotten shafted throughout the years because of the lottery. Now, you look at the sports that have the lotteries, like basketball, like hockey, and you see teams very obviously tank to land that number 1 overall pick or to be in the running for it. But you look at sports like football and baseball, where they don't have the lottery, where your draft pick is where you finish in the standings. You don't really hear as much about tanking in those sports as you do in basketball and hockey in particular.
Yeah, like in football, the teams at the bottom legitimately suck.
Yeah, and not to say that, oh, well, one player on each team can make a very large difference for the franchise. In all reality, in most years, the number 1 pick, if they so desperately need one, is the most important player on the football field. It's a quarterback. I mean, obviously not every year the number 1 overall pick is a quarterback, but you don't see teams tanking to go get that quarterback very often, and openly tanking. Does it happen? Sure. Is it something that is openly talked about that much? No. Unlike in basketball, where the tank is talked about all the time and played out all the time, where you have multiple teams tanking. Hockey in the same way. You hear about multiple teams tanking in hockey. And I would argue that one player makes even less of a difference in an overall team success in hockey as it does for a sport like basketball or baseball or football. Especially in regards to a quarterback, who the quarterback likely makes the most impact of any player in any sport at any given time. So if you don't have it talked about as much in sports like where you don't have the lottery, like football and baseball, why do they have the lottery in hockey and basketball when they want to use that lottery to avoid tanking? Obviously, it's not working.
I agree. It doesn't, like, I feel, because when you look at the NBA draft lottery, you have it's a lottery for the top 4 picks is what it is. So it's like you're giving almost more of an incentive to tank, because you're like, oh, you might not be the worst team, but you can still be in the running for those top 4 picks.
Right. It also encourages more teams to tank than just the one. You know what I mean? Exactly. Like in football, you look at a team's roster and go, oh, we're not that bad, so there's really no point in tanking at this point. Yeah. And plus, if we're not going to get that number 1 overall pick because of that, you know, we can get a guy that's possibly every bit as good of a talent in a different position, in a position we still need, maybe at 4 or maybe at 5.
Yeah, like, it discourages tanking all the way down to, like, the bottom, but, like, it encourages being one of, like, the 5 worst teams. Is basically what the NBA lottery does. Because, honestly, if you look at the odds, Golden State had a 48% chance of getting the 5th pick. That was their best odds, was getting the 5th pick.
They were far and away the worst team in the league.
Not saying they need a top pick, because we all know they were probably holding their players out even after they were good enough to play. Like, let's just take the season out. Right. But still, like, any team that's number 1, I don't understand how the team that's the worst team in the league they have a 50% shot at getting the 5th pick. I don't understand how that works.
It doesn't make sense to me. The lottery odds are disastrous in my mind, my eyes. It just doesn't make sense. I don't believe in the lottery as a successful solution to combat tanking. I really don't think it is, because you've seen more tanking in sports like basketball and hockey than you arguably have in any other sport in the last few years than you have in any other sport ever. I mean, sure, there's been teams in football that have tanked. Look at the Colts when they went for Andrew Luck. It was suck for luck. Has it happened in the past? Yes. But is it as openly and obvious as it is in a sport like basketball? And basketball is really the biggest culprit of it. But is it as openly and obvious in football and baseball as it is in basketball? And the answer is no. It's not. In baseball, I don't even know if there's really a proper way to tank, because the number one picks you're getting are still a lottery in and of themselves, because who knows if they're going to pan out. Half these number one picks are 18, 19-year-old kids that you have no idea if they're going to be any kind of good player. No idea. Versus basketball, it is a little bit more of a sure thing. No question. There have been busts at number 1 and number 2. We know that very well here in Detroit.
Darko.
Yes. But either way, it's... So I understand why there's no tanking really that often in baseball. Does it happen? Yes. Is it, but the tank in baseball is more of a 5-year plan, where you're just bad every year for 5 years and you just stock up picks that way and you stock up young talent that way. It's different. Versus basketball, teams will tank for a year or two, get their number 1 overall pick or number 2 overall pick, get their top talents, and then all of a sudden they're ready to compete again. And then in hockey, I mean, this year was a pretty obvious tank for the Wings. I don't, maybe from what I saw, it looked like they were tanking the way I saw them play. I don't know if Blasha was in on the tank with Stevie Y or what, but that team did not look like they were playing the way that they didn't look like they were built to be a winner. We'll go with that. Not this year. But either way, obviously it hasn't worked for the Pistons or the Wings. They ended up with the number 7 overall pick in the Pistons, and then the Wings ended up with number 4. So it obviously did not work in their favor.
If I'm remembering this fact or stat correctly, I believe the Pistons have actually never moved up in the lottery in all the times that they've been in the lottery. They've only ever moved down or stayed put. And
would you count the year?
I wonder if that's true. I wonder if that's true for the Wings too, because I'm not sure. But the year they had the
number 2 pick was by trade
that year.
Okay,
yeah, because that was by trade.
That was by trade, and they only could get the pick in that top 5 if the Grizzlies didn't land number 1, if I remember right.
Yeah,
if the Grizzlies were number 1, they wouldn't have gotten the pick.
Yeah, yep. But any year they've gone in the lottery with their own pick, they've never moved up.
Interesting.
Life of a Detroit fan.
Interesting. My question for you is, do you think next year they will get the Cleveland Cavaliers treatment of the hometown boy, superstar, all-worldly talent coming into the draft with Imani Bates? Do you think the Pistons will get that hometown treatment?
Are you asking me if the NBA is going to favor the Detroit Pistons?
I mean, think about it this way, though. Why would the NBA favor the Cleveland Cavaliers when they first did to give them LeBron, basically? I'm not of the belief that they favored him to give him LeBron. I'm of the belief that they favored him after they lost LeBron, because you just cannot convince me a team get that number 1 pick that many times in a row. I mean, no, I'll agree with you there, but I don't know. The story of LeBron getting going to his hometown and playing there does seem a little bit too cushy to be real life. It's a little too cute to be real life. So could there have been a little bit of hometown pushing for the Cavs that year? Maybe. Will the Pistons get that same kind of treatment to get Imani Bates? I don't know. I am excited to watch.
The Cavs were the worst team to lead that year, though, weren't they? If I remember correctly.
I don't remember. That was a long time ago. 17 years to be exact. I'm very excited to watch Imani Bates play in green and white for the Spartans this year with Tom Izzo as his coach.
Oh, yeah.
But
Tom Izzo's done a hell of a job recruiting this year.
I'll say. But I'm also excited to watch this kid go and play pro ball for for whoever he lands with. He is the next big thing. He is the next big talent. I'm curious to see what he ends up doing in the league and where he ends up going. Do I hope he becomes a Piston? Absolutely. No question. But do I expect the league to kind of push the Pistons into that spot using the lottery? Absolutely not.
Yep. Well, that being said, so Pistons are sitting at 7 now, and I texted you before. I'm like, I just know we're moving back. Like, there's no way.
Well,
but
we've lived in the city long enough to know that.
Exactly. So now we can ditch all the Anthony Edwards, LaMelo Ball talk, because unless we move, we're not getting them. Sitting at number 7, do you have any major targets that you're looking at for the Pistons? And we'll do a full, again, we're going to, I think like next month, we'll start doing like a full draft breakdown. But for now, again, just highlight like top targets. Is
at number 7, the one guy I really look at for the Pistons is Killian Hayes.
That's my top guy
he's probably my top guy in that spot. I think it's the most realistic for them as well in terms of guys that I like. I have seen Obi Toppin drop that far. I've seen him go from anywhere from number 1 overall to number 10 overall. So he's all over the board in that top 10. And
I've not seen Obi number 1, but that'd be interesting to see.
I have a couple times, but Obi Toppin is a guy who is one of those big time talents who you build around. So he's a guy I think would be good for the Pistons, but Killian Hayes is still my number 1 overall target. I love the kid's game. I think he'd elevate the Pistons to a level that at the point guard position that we haven't seen in a long time. I love his playmaking ability, so I'd love to see him here in Detroit. And at that number 7 spot, I do think it is realistic for the Pistons to grab him there. He is definitely my top target at number 7.
Yeah, and I agree. And just looking, if you guys remember our first time talking about the draft, Killian Hayes has been my favorite point guard outside of LaMelo Ball in this draft. And I honestly do think, even though he's 18, and I do believe he's pretty raw in some areas, I think how technically proficient he is in the pick and roll, and how he's got some of the best court vision I've ever seen out of an 18-year-old coming in the draft. Just looking at that, I actually believe he's ready to come in and contribute day one. Now, I would definitely need to see his 3-point shooting improve. Obviously, he only shot, I believe, 29% last season, even though that, I believe, was an improvement. But he does have a good shooting form, so I think there is hope for him to improve that 3-point shot. But other than that, he's a really pesky defender. Just got to improve the lateral quickness. But again, I think effort is a huge part of playing good defense, and he definitely puts it all out there every time, at least from what I see on film. So I love Killian Hayes. That's why I think he's a perfect fit for the Pistons.
I completely agree. And in today's NBA, anybody can become a 3-point shooter. There's really no question about it. They've taught big men who literally almost never shot threes in their life how to shoot threes in the NBA and be successful at it. Look at Brook Lopez. Who would have thought that dude would be stepping behind the arc? And now look at him. He's shooting threes like crazy. So I'm not all that worried about that lack of ability to shoot from beyond 3. He does have a good shooting form, so there is something to work off of there, and I think he'll be able to pick it up pretty well in the NBA. But Killian Hayes probably is my number 1. Again, like I mentioned before, Obi Toppin is another guy I'd look at in that number 7 spot. Do I think he gets to the Pistons? That's more of a crapshoot. I really don't know. I know he's a very highly touted talent. A lot of teams are looking at him as potentially being their pick in that top end of the draft. I just think he's one of those guys who is one of those electric playmakers. He was the player of the year, the wooden player of the year this past year.
Here's the question: if you were to draft Obi Toppin, are you just going to bring him off the bench until Blake Griffin's gone, or are you going to try to somehow run them together? Like, what would be? He is still. I mean,
playing at Dayton, he probably is still a fairly raw talent. There is still some development there. Maybe I do bring him off the bench or kind of ease him into the system a little bit for the first year. And then possibly maybe we move Blake. I don't know. But eventually maybe we do look at running them together. I don't know. It's all going to come down to Dwayne Casey and what he's able to do as the head coach and what you're doing there. But Blake Griffin is not getting any younger and not getting any healthier. So you are going to have to look at potentially moving someone else into that spot, into that rotation spot, taking up a lot of those minutes. So as we see Blake's minutes potentially drop and as the time goes by, we may see Obi Toppin's climb. And if that's the guy we end up getting. But I do think Obi Toppin is one of those electric talents that has proven an ability to play effectively and play electrically and be the guy on the floor. And that's what we would have to have him do here in Detroit. So I wouldn't mind seeing Obi Toppin in a Pistons uniform at all.
Yeah, I agree with you. I love what he can do offensively. My one actual concern, like the whole, before you play him aside thing, my one actual concern is his defense. The guy is a straight up turnstile on defense. like I don't know. That's what I feel like limits his upside in the NBA for me is can he improve on the defensive end? Because if he can really turn into something in this league. But if he can't, he may end up just being a top end role player. Like there's a wide range of outcomes, I feel, for Obi Toppin.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of big-time stars that play the 4 and the 5 that are not very good defensively. Look at Karl Anthony Towns. Look at Nikola Jokic. Those are crucial talents on their team that really don't play any defense at all, let's be honest. So that aspect in today's NBA isn't as big of a worry for me. It is still a big worry. I do obviously want my guy to play some defense, but I do also think that he has an ability to be a better defender. I think he... maybe playing at Dayton didn't ask him to do that as much. And maybe. I think as you get into the bigger stage, into a more serious role and a more serious situation, I think that'll force him to kind of step up. He's got the ability. He's definitely got the athletic ability. He's got the size. He's got the range. He's able to, he's got the intangibles to play better defense. It's the effort level and then the technical know-how. And I think the NBA coaches will be able to help him with that. I mean, you look at, and I bring up maybe Dayton didn't require him to play as intense a defense there because of the way they played. You look at a guy like, and I mentioned him before, Emoni Bates. I don't know if you've ever watched him play a game of high school basketball, but from what I've seen and what I've heard from people who have watched him play, dude doesn't play a lick of defense some nights. Is that every night? No. But he doesn't have to because they don't ask him to do that. He is their scorer. He is their playmaker. He is their guy on the offensive side of the floor. They pick up the slack on defense with everybody else. He makes the plays happen on offense. So in some situations, sometimes they just don't ask that of their stars, and that could have been the situation at Dayton. Obviously, high school basketball is a lot different than college basketball, especially D1 college basketball. But either way, I do feel like Emoni Bates has the abilities and the intangibles to be a better defender once he takes it up to the NBA level. But again, it's not unheard of to see big-time 4s and 5s in the NBA that are stars not play a lick of defense. And I gave you 2 examples with Karl Anthony Towns and Nikola Jokic. Neither one is talented defensively, but they're still super impactful and super crucial to their teams as they are. So, and one of those guys is going to end up with the number 1 overall pick this year in Karl Anthony Towns. So we'll see how that meshes next year. But again, I do think Obi Toppin's got the ability to be a good defender. But if he's not, we've still seen guys like that become stars in this league.
I'll add to that if he has the ability, if it were for the defense, I do think Obi Toppin is easily in the consideration for the top 8. I think that's the one thing holding him back, to be honest with you. But you really hope if you're an NBA team that he can develop that. But my number 2 guy, and this is still a guy I'm trying to peg in terms of what he can be, and that's Tyrese Halliburton. This dude he's really good offensively, despite a super funky shooting form. I don't know if you ever watched film on him. Like, it looks like he's pushing the ball out from his forehead.
Flashbacks.
It's a really weird looking shooting form.
Flashbacks of nightmares of Sean Marion right there.
But despite that, he's actually a really efficient scorer.
So is Sean Marion.
Another guy that can't do much in terms of at least on-ball defense. And size is a concern. He only weighs 175 at 6'5". But again, I think the Pistons should be looking for offensive playmakers. The Pistons should be looking for everything at this point. But I think an offensive playmaker is something the Pistons could really use. And I think Tyrese Halliburton's a guy that could contribute offensively on this team for years to come, assuming that he can build up some bulk and not get pushed around the NBA level. I think he's somebody who can contribute offensively for a while for this team.
I like Tyrese Halliburton. I know that shooting form is ugly as hell, no question about it, but we've seen bad shooting forms be successful in the NBA from time to time, and I mentioned Sean Marion as one, but I do think he's a solid offensive player that can help this Pistons team. I look at him as more of a role player, but in this draft, are you going to get that cornerstone player at number 7? The answer is probably no. You're going to get, maybe you will with a guy like Killian Hayes or Obi Toppin or, someone along that level. But Tyrese Halliburton can be a solid number 3 option for your team and be a guy that can contribute offensively for years to come, no question about it. Now, I wanted to kind of spin this a little bit because obviously Pistons fans still have this love affair with the potential, including myself, of them landing LaMelo Ball. And obviously at number 7, that just ain't going to happen. It isn't. There's no way. Now, you look at the way that the draft lottery panned out and where each team is going to go, what route they're going to go, and you look at the T-Wolves number 1, probably going to go with Anthony Edwards. That's been the consensus number 1 pick. That's the guy who's been at the top of most of the mock drafts. And then at number 2 was the Warriors, who their backcourt's set long term. So LaMelo Ball is probably not the route they're going to go. I say probably. I don't know for sure, but probably not the route they're going to go because their backcourt is set for years to come.
Expect them to go.
Say that one more time. You cut out.
I can tell you where I expect them to go if you want.
I mean, I expect them to go number 3 to the Charlotte Hornets at that point.
No, where I expect Golden State to go with their number 2 pick.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's between 2 people, to be honest with you. I think it's going to be either James Wiseman or Deni Avdija from Israel. James Wiseman, I think, is a better. Is he about okay? I would say he's a better fit in terms of I still believe that that's a hole on their team. However, in terms of their scheme, I think Deni can actually contribute a little more. But I definitely see him going. I would lean James Wiseman for them in that.
I'd probably lean James Wiseman as well. Granted, we know so little about him compared to some of the other guys in that top 5 just because of the fact that he really had a very abbreviated college season last year. Only played, a game or 2, I thought? Or not. It wasn't enough games to really get a full scouting report on the kid. But We know what type of player he is. We know his prototype and what he's able to do. It's just whether or not he's able to translate into the NBA is one thing that we really don't know. But I do think James Wiseman is the route that the Warriors would go.
I mean, the amount of room he'd have to operate in that offense is
right. It's ridiculous. But with that being said, number 3, LaMelo Ball, is probably where he ends up. That seems to be because the Hornets are a team that look to need a star in the backcourt. They've struggled in years picking in the top 10 since Kemba in particular. They haven't really had a very good top 10 pick since Kemba. I mean, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, Frank Kaminsky, Noah Vonleh, the list goes on. But this is a guy that could potentially be a star in this league and is likely to be a star in this league. So the Hornets look to be the team that ends up drafting him at number 3 overall. Now, with that being said, the Pistons then to get LaMelo Ball, would likely need to move up to number 2. So calling the Golden State Warriors, Andrew, what are you offering to that front office to move up to number 2 from number 7 to ensure that you get yourself LaMelo Ball?
I would not offer a pick next year because I believe next year's draft is going to be pretty big in terms of talent. So, and the Warriors, I don't think had the room to take on a contract like Blake Griffin, even though he's a pretty good fit. You'd have to offer draft capital. The thing is, so what I'd probably end up having to do is probably if I really wanted LaMelo Ball, I'd probably offer our first round pick this year, and then probably a 2022 first. And then that's my starting point. You probably have to throw in like Luke Kennard or something.
I was gonna say you'd probably have to throw in someone like Luke Kennard, maybe throw in a Bruce Brown, or because they love their solid defensive backup point guards, or backup guards, I should say. And Bruce Brown could fit that role pretty nicely for them. I think
there's not much you can offer in terms of player that fits on their team. Like Kennard would come off the bench.
Kennard will come up off the bench as a spot-up shooter, and that's something that I feel like the Warriors would love to have. I feel like I've always wondered what a guy like a Kyle Korver would do on a Warriors offense team.
And I do feel a Pistons top pick 2 years from now is still going to be worth something, considering I don't think we're going to be that good still 2 years from now.
Right, I don't either. So I think that adding Luke Kennard and maybe Bruce Brown to that mix, would you give up your number 7 pick this year, your first round pick in 2022, Luke Kennard, and maybe a Bruce Brown as well? Would you give up all that to grab a guy like LaMelo Ball in this draft?
This is what's going to happen. It's gonna come down to, do I think that Killian Hayes will be there for us at number 7? And if you're looking at because I don't think.
Well, you don't have long to make that decision. This is the second pick we're talking about.
Exactly.
So nothing's going to unfold that nothing's going to be able to unfold at that point that you'll give you an idea.
because I think the two biggest threats to take a point guard are the Bulls and the Hornets. So I'm worried that Killian Hayes is going to go in that 3-4 range. So I like that. Those would be the two teams you need to jump. Meaning you'd have to talk with Golden State, because if I could guarantee I could stay put and get Killian Hayes, I'd be fine just staying put. I don't think the drop off is that big where I'm willing to give up like another first round pick 2 years from now and one.
I think the drop off between LaMelo Ball and Killian Hayes is huge. I think LaMelo Ball is a potential superstar. Like, we're talking one of the top 5 players in the future of this league. Killian Hayes is probably a top 10 point guard in the future of this league.
See, I'm not that high with LaMelo Ball, so
you're one of the few. Then most people are.
I like LaMelo. I like LaMelo offensively more than Killian Hayes, but that's about where, I mean, like offensively in terms of like how well he can, like what he can do, and in terms of just his size. Even though they both have good size, but LaMelo at 6'7" is not your typical point guard. No. But I think to me that's the big advantage that he has over Killian Hayes. I actually like Killian Hayes' passing vision more. I like Killian Hayes better for the pick and roll, which is what the Pistons love to run. So like I think he's a better fit for the system. However, LaMelo Ball is more of a guy you can build around, whereas I'm not sure Killian Hayes is. So that's where the cutoff.
You're also looking at, in terms of LaMelo Ball, a guy who's already played professional basketball twice. He played professional basketball last year for Australia and was actually the league's rookie of the year, with a stat line of 17.6 points per game. I want to say about 8 boards and 7 assists a game. I mean, that's a stat line that would be pretty damn nice to have here in Detroit. And that's a guy that literally does it all for your team, and also has the size and ability to probably play a little bit more defense than he has shown too. Again, his brother's a solid defensive player. Is he anything great? No, but that doesn't mean that, I do feel like he's stepped it up defensively in the NBA since he's gotten here compared to UCLA.
Pull the trigger on that trade if that's on the table.
Say it again?
So you're pulling the trigger on that trade if that's on the table.
I might be. I'm not going to lie, because I'm not overly confident that Killian Hayes does come to the Pistons, especially if there's that's hard tempting for me, because I do feel like that 3-4 area is a danger spot where Killian Hayes could get picked, because he is rising up draft boards. So, and considering the fact that the Pistons are we ever going to be able to bring in a big time star here without definitely getting the number 1 overall pick, which I don't think we ever will. I don't know that we're going to be able to do it, and this may be our best opportunity to do it. Yeah. So maybe we do it. Maybe we bring in LaMelo Ball, jump up to number 2, give up a first-round pick in a couple of years, and we've talked about the potential fit of the future for Luke Kennard as a question mark in this on this team, and Bruce Brown as well, and what we're looking at possibly doing with those guys in the future, and whether or not they're going to be a part of this team in the rebuild. I hope they are. I like them both. I do think they're very good in their roles, but they've got to continue to develop, and whether or not they're going to be a part of the future of this team, I don't know. We've got a new front office now, but I do think LaMelo Ball is a guy you do build around, versus Killian Hayes, I think, is a guy that adds a piece to someone you build around. Yeah. So it's whether or not you want to, using a football analogy here, do you build the team and then draft the quarterback, or do you draft the quarterback and then build the team? So that's kind of what you're looking at philosophy-wise here. And in the NBA, it's more of you draft the quarterback and then you build the team around him than it is in football, where you do see teams build the team and then add the quarterback to it.
And I think the downside of not moving, and because I'm really not too high on any of the players outside, Tyrese Halliburton's interesting, but like LaMelo and Killian are 2 guys I love for the Pistons. So like if that move at least guarantees me to get either get LaMelo, or if I stay put and get none, I'll go give some shit up and get LaMelo.
I'll agree. Now, is there what is that package too much for you to give up, though? If that's what the Warriors are asking for, is it too much?
Well, the 2022 it's like there's no way you're moving up from 7 to 2 without giving up
another first. 100% agree.
And I would much rather give up one in 2022 than one next year.
I agree.
So is it too much? I mean, I never like giving up a first, but I would rather do that than be forced to give up the first round pick next year. So the answer to that would be it's a lot. It's going to be a lot to stomach, but at the end, I think if you get Lonzo Ball, it's worth the price.
LaMelo
Ball, sorry.
No, I'll agree. Honestly, I like Luke Kennard and I like Bruce Brown on this team. Again, I'm not willing to give up a first-round pick next year, just like you. I hope that's not the stopping point for the Warriors, and I like having Kennard and Brown on this team, and I hope they are the future of this team. But if that's what I got to package together with a first-round pick, with a couple of firsts, I should say, to get a potential all-worldly talent like LaMelo Ball, I'm leaning towards willing to do that. Because again, he's a player you build around. He's a potential superstar in this league, so I may look to do that. But let's go ahead and change gears here, unless you have anything else to add on that topic.
Oh, let's change gears. We're gonna close out with a quick NBA rapid fire. Nick, I'm gonna basically rapid fire 5 questions to you, and we'll both answer them. But we'll start off with the Mavs. These are all gonna be related to the NBA playoffs. So Luka Doncic rolled his ankle in the last game, and he is officially questionable for Game 4. My question to you is, can the Mavs make it out of this first round if Doncic is forced to miss multiple games?
No way. Absolutely not. Luka Doncic is the heart and soul of that team. He is the number one guy. Yes, I know KP I know Porzingis has been a big time factor for them as well. But if no Doncic, this team doesn't even make the playoffs, let alone get out of a playoff series. He is that guy for them. He is the guy they built around, and he is their number one scorer. He's their number one playmaker. He is the guy that they run their offense through. He's the most important guy on the basketball floor for the Dallas Mavericks. So without him, this team is nothing. In all reality,
I agree. And like when you look at the other side of the ball with Paul George not having been himself lately, and the Mavs are still down this series. So if Paul George were to turn it on all of a sudden, like this, and no Doncic, this team's dead in the water. But I do think with Doncic in the mix, I do think this team has a chance to pull off the upset, but yeah, no Doncic, no chance.
That would totally destroy my Western Conference bracket because I have the Clippers going to the NBA Finals. But you know what? It'd be fun as hell to see. I'd love to see a young Dallas Mavericks team move on and trounce the Clippers in the first round. That would be awesome to watch.
Oh, yeah. But that you leave me right in it's a perfect time to ask my next question here, which is, where in the world is Paul George? I mean, he's been abysmal so far this series. I had his stats up, and now they're not loading. Okay, here we go. So he shot 7 for 33 so far this series, only 3 for 18 from beyond the arc.
Gross.
His shooting has been absolutely terrible. Do you see the Clippers being able to win this if Paul George does not come back to form, or is there enough there where the Clippers can kind of get covers back?
If Paul George is not there, no. That's like asking if the Lakers can win without LeBron being there. The answer is no.
He's just not there.
Without him being himself, right. I think even if the Clippers do escape the Dallas Mavericks in this round and do get out of this first round here with Paul George not performing at a level that we hope and expect him to, I don't think they're getting.
Is them winning reliant this round? Is them escaping this round reliant on them assuming Luka is back? Is them getting out of this round reliant on Paul George coming back to form?
I'm going to say no, because I think they're getting enough out of guys like Montrezl Harrell to move on in this round, and obviously Kawhi Leonard can put the team on his back and carry him to victory himself as well. But getting some production out of other players on the floor for them, like from a guy like Montrezl Harrell, has been absolutely important and is something that can help them move on past this round. So I think if Paul George doesn't ever come alive in this series, and the fact that they're up 2-1 tells you that, because he hasn't come alive in this series and they're still winning in it. So I think that they have enough talent around Paul George.
Well, many people would argue that Game 1 got stolen from Dallas with that Porzingis ejection.
Right.
But yeah, no, I agree.
Right. I think that there's enough around Paul George and Kawhi Leonard to make up for a lack of Paul George's shooting in this round in particular. But pass into next round, I don't think there's any chance to beat either Denver or Utah with no Paul George. I think you need him to be himself in the next round to move on.
I actually don't have anything else to, because I think you kind of hit on it. I do think, but in terms of moving on to the next round, I think with the way Donovan Mitchell's been playing, if Utah, who's in the lead right now in that series, if they were to move on and meet the Clippers, I think that scoring output from Utah, because they've been scoring in bunches, might be too much for the Clippers to handle if they can't get some scoring output from the Clippers. And Denver just has, again, I too many weapons. I think, you could say the same about Dallas, but yeah, I don't think that the Clippers make out of semifinals, especially if they meet Utah, because I do feel that Utah is a little deadlier if the Clippers don't get the scoring output they need from Paul George.
I think Denver's just one of those teams that's a more complete team than most teams in the league.
They are a more complete team.
They don't have that top end superstar that most teams have, but they have a lot of guys that are right below it in Jamal Murray, in Gary Harris, in Michael Porter Jr., in Nikola Jokic. Jokic, I guess we'll call the superstar. He is the best passing big man in the league in my eyes, but they have a bunch of guys that are right there at the star level that can take over a game at any given time, like we saw from Jamal Murray the other night. So I do think that is a more complete team, and I don't think the Clippers will be able to compete with that if Paul George isn't showing up. And the same, like you mentioned, with the Jazz. If Donovan Mitchell continues to perform the way he has, I don't think Clippers have a shot. The scoring threat that comes from Mitchell and that Jazz team is too much for the Clippers to handle when they have a cold shooting Paul George. So because when he's not making shots, that's obviously points not up on the board, and it takes away from someone else's opportunity to put up points on the board to keep up with a team like the Jazz, who's been scoring at electric levels so far.
Rivers, are you keeping the green light on Paul George? You can tell him to keep shooting until you get out of it?
You have to. You don't have a choice. You live in when it comes to your stars, you live and die with them. If they're cold, guess what? They're going to keep shooting until they start making them. You don't have a choice. Paul George and Kawhi Leonard got you there. He's got to get you past this now. So you have to keep giving him the green light. All
right, and one of the biggest surprises so far this playoffs, at least to me, the Rockets have been getting it done with defense. And I don't know if you've watched the Rockets Thunder series, but they have been stifling the backcourt of Chris Paul and Shea Alexander. Is this something that the Rockets can ride to a title shot, or I'm talking like it's wrestling now, but is this something the Rockets can ride to the championship, or is this defense kind of a fluke in your eyes?
I think this is a little bit fluky because I'll be honest with you, I don't know what this Thunder team is all that good. I think they're very young, with the exception of Chris Paul, but Chris Paul is also. The jury's out on him with the Rockets. They know everything there is to know about his game. So obviously they know how to slow him down. And the rest of the Thunder, they're just young. It's a very young roster that's building, and they were a bit of a surprise this year in how good they were. So I think the Rockets just overall are a better basketball team. And when you have that type of situation, defense is going to come up. You have the experience. You have the ability to play with the other team's head and play with their game and get inside their head a little bit. And then having the scouting report on one of the biggest contributors for the Thunder in Chris Paul and being able to lock him down, that ruins the entire offensive flow for the Thunder right there. So while I think that the Rockets have played exceptional defense in this series, I don't think they have a chance to have defense be the key to victory going up against a team like the Lakers or the Trailblazers. I don't think there's any chance for that to continue.
I see what you're saying. So, because I do think there's one thing that's undeniable is the fact that I've never seen the Rockets play a level of defensive intensity that I've seen from this, but there is a factor that maybe the stage was too big for the Clippers and they got stifled by it, but a better, more experienced team, the Thunder got stifled by it, but a better, more experienced team may not get stifled and may find a way past it. So I do see what you're saying there, but for me at least, I don't think that I wouldn't say it's a fluke, but I don't know if the defense is what's going to carry them at the end of the day because, again, it's defensive intensity, but it's not like they have the best defenders on their team. They can get after all they want, but better teams may find a way past it.
Right, and also the ability to have as much of a scouting report on a guy like Chris Paul, who is kind of the orchestrator of a lot of the offensive flow for the Thunder. Having the ability to know how to lock him down because you played with him and know his tendencies and know what he likes to do with the basketball, having that scouting report allows you to up the intensity a little bit more because you're like, oh, I know exactly what he's going to do. I'm going to guarantee he ain't going to beat me to it. So that allows you to up the intensity, and not having that level of knowledge up against a team like the Blazers or the Lakers, I think will cause the intensity to drop a little bit because they got to play a little bit more on their heels in that series. Right now, they can play on their toes. They can play a little bit more assertive. Versus a team like the Blazers and the Lakers, who, mind you, I also think are a far better offensive team than the Thunder. Both of them are far better offensively than the Thunder. It's a little bit different. You're not able to play on your toes and be as assertive as you would be against the Thunder because they are more experienced. They are more knowledgeable. They are able to beat you when you, the old saying, if you reach, I'll teach kind of thing. Versus right now, the Thunder a lot of their talent is younger. They don't have that knowledge yet. They don't have that experience and wisdom. So the Rockets are able to take advantage of that and play a little bit more assertive and play a little bit more intense. Versus against the Blazers or the Lakers, you can't do that because they'll school you. They'll take you to school and they'll play the game and stop your intensity and force you to play more on your heels. So that's why I personally think it's a little bit fluky because we've never seen this out of the Rockets, and I don't think it's going to continue.
I will say, though, PJ Tucker keeps it up. I'm going to have to reevaluate everything I said about him. All right. Here, closing out with a couple softball picks. Fourth question. Give me an upset pick.
Ooh, upset pick. Let's see.
If you need some time, I can give you mine.
No, I got mine. It's the Jazz over the Nuggets.
Jazz over Nuggets?
Yes, this Jazz team is getting levels of scoring out of Donovan Mitchell that is just unbelievable. And when you have a player playing at that kind of level, it's hard to stop. And that can win you series right there. And as much as I love this Nuggets team, when a guy's that on fire, there's no stopping that. The ball, it's like a snowball hurtling down a hill. It just keeps going. There's no stopping it. So if Donovan Mitchell continues to play, that Jazz team will win this series, maybe in 5, maybe in 6, maybe in 7, but that Jazz team is going to win the series if Donovan Mitchell continues to play the way he is.
I'm going for the Hail Mary pass here. I'm actually going to take Portland over the Lakers.
I don't think it's a Hail Mary. I'll be honest with you. I don't think it's a Hail Mary.
Because I'll be honest with you, Lakers were one of my favorites going in to the bubble, I should say. Going into the bubble, not the playoffs. But the way they have been playing out, they look broken, let's put it that way. Anthony Davis has kind of sort of carried the load offensively while LeBron has taken more or less of a back seat. And you if you're a Lakers team, you need LeBron to step it up. Now, Portland, on the other hand, they even haven't been as on offensively as I've seen them in the past. And they still have so far managed to get a win in game 1. And I don't know how much Damian Lillard's finger injury affected Portland in game 2 with that loss, but I expect them to bounce back in either game 3 or 4. I expect this to be a series. I really do. And I think Portland can grind it out because I don't know how well this Lakers team is really fitting together right now.
I didn't pick Portland because I thought that was the easy pick. I'll be straight up with you. I actually think this Portland team is a very good shot to win this series. I think the Lakers are a very flawed basketball team. And it comes with the fact that the Lakers don't have good shooting at all. At all. And when in the most successful LeBron basketball teams,
it's in KCP.
I know. And
look at a guy like Danny Green is supposed to be a good shooter who hasn't been doing it.
Right. And look at LeBron's most successful basketball teams. Let's go that route. Who has he had on those teams? Good shooters. He had Ray Allen with the Heat. He had Dwayne Wade, who you could argue is a good or not good shooter, but Dwayne Wade was Dwayne Wade. He had Kyrie Irving, who was a fantastic outside shooter. He had Kyle Korver. He had Kevin Love. He has had fantastic shooters around him in his career on the teams that he's been the most successful with. And on this Lakers team, Danny Green can't shoot. Not right now. KCP can't shoot. We've seen that here in Detroit. Kyle Kuzma's struggling. That whole team is struggling to shoot right now.
It's just not a well-built team.
It's not. It's really not. And yes, Anthony Davis is an otherworldly star, but at the same time, those two can't do it alone against a team like the Blazers. It's been shown. And Damian Lillard is an absolute stud. CJ McCollum can play ball, obviously. He's a fantastic shooter. And I take back everything I've said in the past about Yusuf Nurkic. Dude's a baller. Dude is a baller. But that team is just a very good basketball team. And honestly, this team would not have been the 8th seed and fighting to get that 8th seed in the bubble had it not been for the fact that they've had a ton of injuries this year. CJ McCollum missing a ton of time. Yusuf Nurkic missing a ton of time. They had a ton of injuries throughout this year. This team would probably be in that 3, 4, 5 spot, if you ask me. Because I think this team is better than than the number 8 seed, and this Lakers team is going to continue to struggle unless they start shooting the lights out. Because I think the Portland Trail Blazers are a better basketball team in terms of all around. They're the better built basketball team. They've played together longer. They've got more of a conducive flow to a cohesive flow to the way they play the game than the Lakers do. And the Lakers, as of right now, can't shoot the ball. So, and if you can't shoot in the NBA playoffs, you ain't going anywhere.
I honestly think what this team needs is, like you said, they need at least a shooter, and I think even more so, they need at least a starting caliber point guard on this team.
Agreed.
Someone not named LeBron needs to really bring this offense together and facilitate the ball to the right guys. Not saying LeBron can't do it, but I think that it's almost like they're like, it hasn't been working the first two games. It's felt like LeBron has been taken out of the game offensively because he's busy facilitating.
You know what LeBron needs to do is if he sees Damian Lillard start to play hero ball, he needs to match him and play hero ball of his own. Say,
I'll agree with you.
Get out of the way.
He's the only one on this team that can, I feel like.
Exactly. Say, get out of the way, Kyle Kuzma. Get out of the way, KCP. Get out of the way, Danny Green. Get out of the way, Anthony Davis. This is my game, my team, and my series to win. And I'm going to make damn sure that we do it because he's LeBron James. He needs to assert himself and be the guy. When Damian Lillard is doing it, he needs to. And that's the only way that he's going to be able to compete in games, and that the Lakers are going to be able to compete in games where Damian Lillard's going off like he did in game one. LeBron needs to play the hero game. He needs to. We've seen it before. He can still do it.
All right. Final question. What's been your favorite series to watch so far? We went from tough to soft.
Honestly, it's been that Lakers Portland series because I so badly want to see an 8 seed beat a 1. I love watching watching those upsets happen, and I do enjoy watching this Blazers team play. And obviously, LeBron is LeBron. You're just glued to the TV whenever he's on the floor. So that's been my favorite series to watch. Another fun one, though, has been that Bucks Magic series because there has been a little bit of a surprise in there with the Magic taking a game. It's been a fun series to watch but that Blazers-Lakers series has been the one I've kind of glued into.
So far for me, it's actually been one that I wasn't expecting to have a lot of fun with, which is the Clippers-Dallas series. But
that's another fun one.
Yeah, a close second, though. Well, I'll say a close second is the Lakers-Portland because of just how interested I am in the possible upset, but I really thought after game one that this Denver-Utah series was going to be a nail-biter every single game. I really thought it was going to be. But then the last two games have been kind of blowouts.
I mean, honestly, that Jazz Nuggets series is exciting to watch just to be able to watch the play of Donovan Mitchell right now.
Yeah.
That's the reason to watch.
Series suck to me. But.
I ain't gonna lie. I mean, the Bucks Magic series ain't bad, but the rest of them are pretty bad, yes.
Do you think, real quick, do you think the Magic have any chance at pulling off this upset?
No.
They took game one.
No. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think Giannis wakes up and just says, no, thank you. No, sir.
Actually, I should probably ask you this. Who's your championship pick before we close this out completely?
Championship pick. Let me do this. My NBA Finals is Milwaukee and the Clippers. My champion pick, I'm going to go with the Clips. I think the Clippers I think Paul George comes alive, and I think they're one of the better built basketball teams in this league. And I think if they get past Dallas, I don't know if there's any stopping them if Paul George comes alive.
I had the same as you, but I'm actually going Milwaukee.
Okay, I'd love to see the Bucks win a title. I want to see Giannis win one so bad.
I think when Giannis is on, he's literally the most unstoppable player in the league.
He is the most unstoppable player in the league if he's on, yes. Yes. Force him to shoot, and you got a different story. But
yeah. Dude, I was playing with him in 2K20 the other day. It's not fair. Like, I just drive the lane every time. No one could do anything about it.
Yeah, like, it's unreal.
And that's not even playing on a low level. Like, I'm playing on normal, like, all-star. Like, it's unfair.
Oh, man. Anything else to add?
No, that's everything, man.
All right, so that's going to call for this week, guys. Thank you again for listening. We'll catch you next week. This has been the Fan Reporters by Fans.
Or fans.
Follow us on Twitter at Real Fan Report and follow at Detroit Podcast as well. Thank you to them. And if you guys have any topics, let us know. We'll or if you have any questions, hit us up. Obviously, football season's starting to come around. We got training camp going on and just a few short weeks away from the start of the NFL season. So that means fantasy football is coming back. So obviously, Andrew and I are big into that. But
still trying to figure out how our season's going to work.
Yeah, it's going to have a bit of a different look this year. We're not sure how that's going to go. But anyways, though, thank you guys again for listening. Andrew, thank you for joining me, and we will catch you guys next week. Peace.
Peace.